Hey guys, welcome to or back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jess and this is my May wrap up. So in the month of May, I had 10 books on my actual TBR, and then I also picked up a bonus book, which was Blood for Blood by Ryan Groden. But of these 10 books, I am halfway through both of these on top, and I have not started these two. So all in all, it was a really good reading month as I got most of the way through my TBR, and I will only have 4 books carrying over to next month. But without further ado, let's get into what I read. The first book I read this month was Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. So this is the third book in the Grishaverse trilogy, and we follow a girl named Alina as she discovers that she actually has powers and she is a sun summoner. So in this world, there are the people called the Grisha who all have different powers, and depending on your power is kind of how you're ranked. In the second army is what the Grisha are called, and you can do all kinds of things. You can be like a heart render, you could be a healer, you can be someone who can build things really easily, you can move earth, you can control water, you can control air, it's all kinds of things. But there are only 2 very powerful Grisha, and that is Alina, now that she is the sun summoner, and the Darkling, who kind of rules the entire world, and his power is kind of the complete opposite of hers. And they, in the first book, they have to try to work together to get rid of this thing called the Fold, which is this huge expanse of like black smoke basically that split the country in half, and you can't cross it because there are monsters living inside of it. But yeah, that's how the series starts, and then it just goes everywhere from there. So this is the third book. I read the first 2 in like 6th grade, and I never picked up the third one, and then they came out with these editions, which are beautiful, by the way. Like, just look at that, it's so cute. You can see the first 2, their editions are like gorgeous. But I loved these editions, and I saw them and I was like, what a great time to actually own the books. So I bought all 3 of them, and the last couple of months I have reread the first 2, and I finally finished the series, and I loved it. I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. All the romances, all of the plot twists, it was just great. Her writing style is great. It was so nice to finally see this story wrapped up and finished, and I love the way she did it. And I'm excited to go and reread her next duology, which is 6 of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, because I need to reread those so that I can pick up her newest duology, which is King of Scars. And yeah, I'm just ready for more Leigh Bardugo. Okay, this book was awesome, and I'm so excited to continue with her writing. The next book that we picked up and finished in the month of May was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank by Mark Manson. This is a self-help book about learning how to kind of not care what people think, and it was very good. This was actually given to me by a friend. I'm sure he's watching this. If you're watching this, hi Octavio, thank you for the book again. But this was a great book. Since it is a nonfiction, I didn't rate it by stars because I don't do that with nonfictions, but I did give it a thumbs up. I think it's great. I think you should read it. I remember one thing specifically that he talked about in here was entitlement, and he talked about how entitlement isn't just you thinking that you're better than everybody else. Entitlement can also be the other side of the spectrum, where you think you're worse than everybody else and you think you're not worth anything, and so you expect people to kind of pity you basically, and that is also entitlement. And so you just gotta kind of be like middle of the road, and I really liked that he said that because I've never ever heard that said before, but it makes sense. And yeah, I love this book. It was a super quick short read. It took me only a couple of days, but yeah, it was a great book, and I think more people should definitely read it. The next book that I picked up in the month of May was The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. This I actually listened to on audiobook, and it was great. Okay, this follows a boy named Carter. His parents die, and he goes to live with his uncle, who is a street magician, and he looks up to his uncle, and he wants to also be a street magician. Well, Carter gets old enough to try to start noticing like what's really going on, and realizes that every time his uncle does magic, he's actually conning people and he's stealing their stuff. And so he decides to kind of live by this code that that magic is great, but you can't steal anything, and you can't steal anything no matter what, whether you're doing magic or not. He's just totally against thieves. And so he runs away from his uncle. He gets on a train and he ends up in this town where there's this huge circus going on. The person that's in charge of the circus is called Bonzo, and Carter learns that Bonzo and his gang of circus people are stealing everybody's stuff, and he is not okay with it. But he doesn't know what one little guy can do until he walks into a magic shop and meets the rest of the Misfits. And so he meets 5 other kids, and they are all performers of some type of magic ability, and they start a club and they take down Bonzo, and it is so cute, it's so funny, it's lighthearted. It is a middle grade, so it's a super easy read, super easy listen. The audiobook itself was actually narrated by Neil Patrick Harris, which I really enjoyed because he was able to change his voice based on what he thought the character sounded like. And since he wrote the character, I feel like that was just really cool because it's how he thought they sounded and how he pictured them in his brain as he was writing them. The other thing that I really liked about this book is in between the chapters, it has like how to do magic. So like this one, for instance, is how to move objects with your mind. And so, I mean, it was a break from the story, so it kind of pulled you out a little bit, but I think it was a really cool, it was a really cool addition to the story, and I really liked it. And I think that would be great for kids because then they can figure out how to do magic tricks, and who doesn't love to do magic tricks? But yeah, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, the only reason it's a 4, not a 5, is because although I loved those how-to points, they did kind of pull you out of the story a little bit, so that was a downfall. But other than that, this was a super great book, and if you like middle grades, you should definitely go check out this series. The next book we picked up was Out of the Easy by Ruta Sepetys. So this follows a girl named Josie, and she is the daughter of a prostitute in New Orleans, and I want to say the 1950s. It's in the 1950s. She's the daughter of a prostitute, and her mom starts working for this woman named Willie, and Willie kind of sees Josie and takes her in as her own, almost like she wants to protect her and she wants a better life for her than what her mother has. And so Willie's like, hey, you need to get out of here. And so Willie gives her a job cleaning her house. And so Josie works at her house, and she's like, you need to leave, you need to get out of here, you need to get away from your mother. So Josie moves into her own apartment above a bookstore and also works in the bookstore. And Josie has decided that she needs to make something of herself, and in order to do that, she wants to go to college out of state to get away from her mom and the life that everybody in the quarter knows her as her mom's daughter, and she doesn't want that anymore. So she tries to figure out how she's going to raise the money, and she is working on, her main goal is just to get out and get out and get out and get out as fast as she can. She's trying to do this when a nice man walks into the bookstore and talks to her and buys a book, and then that next morning he is found dead. And Josie is wrapped up in the murder investigation in way more ways than she would like to be. I loved this book. I think it was so good. I loved Josie as a character. I loved how headstrong she was, and I loved how she was just so, she thought so highly of herself that she knew that that was not what she wanted to do, and that she didn't want to be there, and that she needed to get out, and she was willing to do anything to get there. I loved the romance in this. I will say it was a love triangle, and like for the split second that the love triangle was happening, I was like, is this really happening? Does this really need to happen? And then the other thing is, like, to get out of the love triangle, she made one of the boys gay. So like, that was such an easy way to get out of the love triangle, and it kind of bothered me a little bit because like there was no leading up to him being gay. It was just like she liked both of them and she was like kissing both of them, and then like the next chapter, oh wait, that one's not interested in girls. Like it was too easy, and there was nothing to suggest that he was up until that point, and so it just wasn't believable for me, which is why this is getting a 4 out of 5 stars instead of a 5 out of 5 stars. But that being said, I did really enjoy this story. I liked her dynamic between Josie and Willie. I like how Willie just became kind of like her surrogate mother almost. But yeah, this was a great story. I loved it. I love Ruta Sepetys' writing. I read a lot of her other historical fictions. She is one of my favorite historical fiction writers because You can tell that she really researches what she's going to talk about in the time period and the place, and it makes it just so believable, and it feels like you're really there. And I love her writing, and I think everybody that likes historical fictions should check out a book by Rita Sepetys. So yeah, go check this one out. The next book that I completed in the month of May was Awkward by Svetlana Chimkova. This was super cute. It is a middle grade graphic novel following a girl who is having her first day of middle school when she trips and falls in the hallway, and she like throws all of her books and papers on the ground, as people do when they fall, apparently, in like every high school or middle school situation. And the person that comes to help her is the nerd of the school, and so people start making fun of her, and so to save her image and help the situation, she shoves him down and runs away. And so she is like, we're following her a couple weeks later, and she's feeling so guilty about doing that, and she can't just go up to him and say sorry, until she finally does, and then she wants to become friends, and so then they become friends. But then it turns out that they are actually in rival clubs. So she is part of the art club, and he is part of the science club, and these clubs are currently fighting over the last table in the school club fair. So there's so much drama in this book, and it's so cute. There's a lot of like friendship dynamics, and it talks a lot about like people having to get along with each other, which I think is a great message for kids. So this is definitely an A+ for a middle grade. But it's so cute. The art style in here is just like beautiful. I think it was adorable. It's like all pastel colors, and it works together, and it's so cute. The panels are also really big, so it was a really quick read. I think this took me like maybe 2 or 3 hours to get through the entire book, and it's only like 200 pages, but I loved it. I thought it was so cute. It was a 4 out of 5 stars for me. It was so great. And I thought this was part of a series because I have another book by her called Brave, but I've recently discovered that although they look the exact same, like the cover looks the exact same, except for instead of Awkward it says Brave and there's a different person on the cover. I thought it was just the next book in the series. It turns out they're both standalones. They're just designed the same, which I think is also cool. So I'm excited to pick up her next standalone book and read another story from her, because I loved this one and I hope I love her other ones too. The next book that I picked up and finished in the month of May was The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai. This is a fake dating romance, and it was done beautifully, except for one thing, which we'll get into in a minute. But this follows a woman who is kind of just being awesome. Like, she graduated college, she's worked for all these different companies, and she's like excelling at her job, and she doesn't need a man. She's doing it all on her own. Her and her dog are living their best life. But she has her dad and a bunch of aunties that want her to get married because she's in her 30s. And apparently not being married in your 30s is bad for a woman, at least in this culture it is. So they want her to get married, but she does not want to get married to all of the men they pick. And so in order to do this, she needs to find a fake boyfriend in order to get them off her back. Then we follow our other perspective, who is a guy whose grandfather has just passed away, and in order to collect his inheritance from the will, he must be married before his next birthday, which is in 2 months. So that does not leave a lot of time for him to find a fiance. They run into each other at this conference, and they share a little bit of a moment, and her auntie is there and trying to set her up with this other guy, and so they kiss and they become fake boyfriend and girlfriend just for that day, or so she thought, because then he comes back and he's like, hey, I need you to pretend to be engaged to me so that I can get this inheritance. And she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. But there's a lot of underlying feelings, because it turns out they were each other's childhood crush. So he was her older brother's best friend, and she was in love with him from the moment she saw him, and he was supposed to be her date to the high school prom, and he stood her up. So there's a lot of those like unresolved hate feelings there, and that adds a great level to the story. I thought it was great. So not only is that fake dating trope, it's also like enemies to lovers, which just, we're combining all the stuff today. We're combining all the stuff. But it was super good. It was super great. The one thing that did bother me is like she put such an emphasis on the hate that she had for him, and because of that hate she came up with like all of these rules whenever they started the fake dating. She was like, this isn't real, we're not developing feelings, we're not gonna like each other, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna sleep together, like that's against the rules, whatever. And it took like one date and they were like all over each other. So I feel like I would have enjoyed it, like it would have gotten that 5 out of 5 stars for me. Instead it got a 4 out of 5 stars, but it would have hit that 5 out of 5 stars mark if there would have been more of like a resistance, like of her to him because of that hatred. Like if we would have seen that go for a little bit longer, I feel like it would have been more believable rather than just like, okay, what the heck, we're just gonna do it kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I felt about this one, and I loved it except for that one aspect, and it was great otherwise. I love a romance, and I love fake dating, and I love enemies to lovers, so who would have guessed that I would have liked this book? Everybody would have guessed. But yeah, that's this one. And the final book that I was able to complete in the month of May was The Midnight Star by Marie Lu. So this is the final book in the Young Elite trilogy. Apparently this is the month for finishing trilogies that I haven't read since like middle school, but this one was so good. So in this trilogy we follow 3 perspectives. Our first is Adelina, and she has survived what is called the blood fever when she was younger, and because of this she has developed powers. And these kids that have survived the blood fever are seen as like abominations, and they're seen as like curses basically. She is trying to like figure out how to deal with that basically. And then we follow another perspective named Turin, and Turin is working for the government, and his job is to go around and try to assassinate all of these kids that now have powers because they have survived the blood fever, because the government sees them as dangerous. And then you also follow Enzo, and Enzo is the leader of a section of these kids that have survived and now have powers. They call themselves the Young Elites, and that's how the story starts, and then it just blows up from there and it goes crazy, and we add so many more perspectives and so many people. There's so many friendships, there's so many romances, there's so much drama, there's so many plot twists, everything changes, and it is so good. It is a great series. I love her writing. I feel like I say that with all of these like old authors that I read when I was younger, but I really do. I also like her other series, Legend. This one is so good. This book in particular, it's been a while since I've read the second book in this series. I was kind of scared that I wasn't going to remember that much about it. However, this book jumps right back straight into the action, and so I picked up on everything really quick and I remembered a lot of it, and I loved the way she ended the series. I think this is one of my favorite like endings to a series. It made me cry so hard. It made me cry so hard because it was done so beautifully. I was mad for a little bit at the ending because there was a part of it that I didn't think was necessary and I didn't think should have happened, but then I read the epilogue and I was like, okay, that actually makes sense for like the story in the world to go on, you know, it was whatever. I was just mad about it because I liked that character, and yeah, but the way this was done was beautiful and it was so cute, and I loved the romance in here. I didn't, in the second book, I did not ship these two together, but in the third book, they were perfect for each other and it made sense, and I don't know how my brain ever thought she was better with another person in the first couple of books, but this one just brought it all together and it was glorious and it was great, and it was an amazing ending to a series that I've been reading since 6th grade, so we're finally done with it. But yeah, this one was a 4 out of 5 stars and I really liked it. So you should definitely go check out this series if you're a fan of like fantasy. So overall, we completed 7 books and we got halfway through 2 of them. So I am counting that as a win. I think that was a great reading month compared to what I've been doing the past couple of months. It was great, and I enjoyed every single thing that I read, so that is also amazing. As usual, if you are interested in checking out any of these books or you want to know more about them, I will link them all in the comments down below. I'm also going to link my May TBR video where I talk about the other 3 that I have not read yet. So in case you're interested in those, I talk about those there. I will also link the playlist for all of my past wrap-ups, so that way you can go check those out if you so choose to. But other than that, that's all I have for you today. So if you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and shoot a comment down below. Let me know what you read in the month of May. Let me know what you've been reading. Let me know what you've been doing. I would love to just talk with you guys. But yeah, that's that. I will see you soon with another video. Bye!